The vast expanse of space stretched out before Captain Kel Oswald, a seemingly endless graveyard of ruined ships and discarded technologies known as the Iron Expanse. His weathered freighter, the Starhound, weaved through the debris field with practiced precision. Kel's calloused hands gripped the controls, his eyes scanning the sea of twisted metal for anything salvageable. The Starhound's interior was a patchwork of mismatched parts and jury-rigged systems, a testament to Kel's life as a scavenger. His ship's gentle hum was punctuated by the occasional creak and groaning, reminders of the constant struggle to keep her flying. Kel's weathered face was illuminated by the soft glow of the control panel. His deep blue eyes, having seen too much, narrowed as he focused on the task at hand. Stubble peppered his jaw, and his once auburn hair was now streaked with gray. He wore the years like a well-worn coat, each line on his face a story of survival in the unforgiving void. As he maneuvered through a particularly dense cluster of debris, a sudden ping from his scanner broke the silence. Kel's heart rate quickened, his mind racing through possibilities. Valuable tech, rare minerals. But as he checked the readout, his brow furrowed in confusion. Life signs, he muttered, disbelief coloring his voice. Out here, the idea seemed absurd. The Iron Expanse was a place of death and abandonment, not life. Yet the scanner insisted. Steady ping, a siren song of mystery. Curiosity overrode caution, and Kel adjusted his course. The Starhound responded sluggishly, its aging systems protesting the sudden change in direction. As he drew closer to the source of the signal, the debris field grew denser. Twisted hulls of long-forgotten ships loomed like silent sentinels, their purpose lost to time. Finally, nestled in the heart of a particularly dense cluster, Kel spotted it. A stasis pod, its sleek design a stark contrast to the rusted metal surrounding it. The pod's exterior was partially crushed, pinned beneath a massive sheet of hull plating. Kel brought the Starhound to a stop, the ship's floodlights illuminating the scene. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the airlock controls. Years of scavenging had taught him to be cautious, to expect the unexpected. But something about this discovery tugged at him, a feeling he couldn't quite name. With a resigned sigh, Kel activated the airlock. The familiar hiss of equalizing pressure filled his ears as he donned his battered EVA suit. Each movement was practiced, automatic, born from years of necessity. As he stepped out into the void, the magnitude of the Iron Expanse hit him anew. The Starhound, his home and lifeline, seemed impossibly small against the backdrop of endless debris. Kel pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. He made his way to the stasis pod, his magnetic boots clanking against the metal debris. Up close, the pod's damage was more apparent. Whatever had happened, it had been violent. Yet the pod's internal systems still functioned, a feat of engineering that piqued Kel's professional interest. With practiced ease, Kel attached a portable power unit to the pod's external interface. The unit hummed to life, and the pod systems responded immediately. Holographic displays flickered to life, bathing the area in a soft blue glow. Kel's eyes widened as he read the data scrolling across the screen. The pod's occupant was alive, but barely. Life support was failing, and without intervention, death was imminent. Well, Kel muttered, his voice echoing in his helmet. He knew he should leave. That, involving himself, would only lead to trouble. But something held him back. A nagging sense of responsibility he thought he'd left behind years ago. With a grunt of effort, Kel began to clear the debris pinning the pod. Each piece of metal he moved sent vibrations through his suit. The silence of space made the task feel oddly disconnected. Sweat beaded on his brow as he worked, the exertion taxing his suit's environmental controls. Finally, after what felt like hours, the pod was free. Kel connected a tether to its frame and slowly began to guide it back to the Starhound. The journey was tense, every bump and jostle a potential disaster for the pod's fragile occupant. As the airlock closed behind them, Kel allowed himself a moment of relief, but the real challenge was just beginning. He maneuvered the pod into the Starhound's cramped cargo hold, his mind racing through the potential consequences of his actions. With the pod secured, Kel turned his attention to its occupant. The external readouts were grim, indicating critical life support failure. There was no time for caution. With a deep breath, Kel initiated the pod's opening sequence. Steam hissed from the seals, as the pod's lid slowly lifted. Kel leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. As the mist cleared, he found himself face to face with something he never expected. Inside the pod lay a woman, or something like one. Her body was a seamless fusion of human and machine, a marvel of bioengineering that defied Kel's understanding. Glowing circuits pulsed beneath her pale skin, creating mesmerizing patterns that shifted with each shallow breath. Cybernetic interfaces adorned her neck, their purpose a mystery to Kel's untrained eye. But it was her eyes that truly captured his attention. As they flickered open, Kel found himself staring into depths of swirling light, as if galaxies themselves resided within her gaze. Those eyes focused on him with an intensity that made him take an involuntary step back. Her voice, when it came, was a strange blend of warmth and cold precision. It whispered through the air, carrying a weight of purpose that Kel couldn't ignore. "I found you." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Kel blinked, his mind struggling to process the situation. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The woman, if she could be called that, slowly sat up. Her movements were fluid despite her long confinement. "Who? What are you?" Kel finally managed, his voice hoarse. The woman tilted her head, her luminous eyes studying him with an unsettling intensity. "I am Leah," she said, her voice gaining strength. "And you are the one I was designed to find." Kel scoffed, uncertainty warring with disbelief. "Lady, I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a scrapper trying to make a living in this godforsaken place." Leah's expression softened, though her gaze remained fixed on Kel. "You are more than you know, Kel Oswald. Much more." The use of his name sent a chill down Kel's spine. He took another step back, his hand instinctively moving to the blaster at his hip. "How do you know my name?" "I know many things," Leah replied, her tone maddeningly calm. "But my memory is fragmented. Incomplete." She frowned, the first real emotion Kel had seen from her. "I was in stasis for so long. Much has been lost." Kel's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. "Okay, let's start with the basics. What exactly are you, and what do you mean you were designed to find me?" Leah gracefully stepped out of the pod, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. The circuits beneath her skin pulsed with increased intensity, as if responding to her heightened awareness. "I am not entirely human," she began, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "I was created by Helen Dynamics, a corporation specializing in advanced biotechnology and artificial intelligence." Kel's eyes widened at the mention of Helen Dynamics. Even out here in the fringes of civilized space, that name carried weight. Rumors of their experiments in synthetic life had been circulating for years, each story more fantastical than the last. "Helen Dynamics?" he repeated, his voice low. "That's not a name you throw around lightly. What did they want with you? And more importantly, what do they want with me?" "Live time." Leah's gaze seemed to turn inward, as if searching through fragmented memory. "I was designed as a cybernetic empath, created to bond with a specific human counterpart. You, Kel Oswald, are that counterpart. You are the key." Kel let out a humorless laugh, the sound echoing in the cramped cargo hold. "Key to what exactly?" "Look, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I want no part of it. I'm just trying to survive out here." Leah took a step towards him, her movements graceful despite her long confinement. "I understand your skepticism, Kel, but the truth is you are integral to averting a catastrophe that threatens not just humanity, but all sentient life in this sector of the galaxy." Before Kel could respond, alarms erupted throughout the Starhound. The ship shuddered violently, nearly throwing them both off balance. Kel cursed, sprinting towards the cockpit with Leah close behind. As they entered the bridge, Kel's eyes widened in horror. The view screen showed multiple ships emerging from the cover of the debris field, their weapons already charging. "The Raiders have found us!" Kel exclaimed, throwing himself into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls, desperately trying to bring the Starhound's defenses online. But the aging ship systems were slow to respond, and the first barrage of plasma bolts slammed into their hull. The ship rocked violently, warning lights flashing across every console. Kel gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls as he tried to maneuver through the debris field. But the raiders were faster, more agile, their ships dancing around the Starhound with practiced ease. "We're not gonna make it," Kel muttered, his voice tight with tension. "The shields are failing, and we don't have the firepower to fight back." Leah stepped forward, her glowing eyes fixed on the ship's interface. Without hesitation, she reached out, cybernetic tendrils extending from her fingertips to connect with the star systems. "What are you?" Kel began. But his words died in his throat as the ship suddenly came alive beneath his hands. The Starhound's engines roared with newfound power. Systems that had been dormant for years springing to life. The ship moved with impossible precision, dodging plasma bolts and weaving through the debris field as if it were an extension of Leah herself. Kel watched in awe as Leah's eyes flickered rapidly, streams of data reflecting in their luminous depths. Her fingers danced over the interface, and the Starhound responded instantly, its weapon systems locking onto the Raiders' ships with unerring accuracy. Within moments, the tide of the battle had turned. The Raiders, caught off guard by the Starhound's sudden transformation, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned. One by one, their ships retreated, disappearing back into the shadows of the iron expanse. As the last raider vanished from their sensors, Kel let out a shaky breath. He hadn't realized he'd been holding it. He turned to Leah, who was disconnecting herself from the ship's systems, her eyes returning to their normal glow. What the hell was that?" Kel demanded, a mix of awe and fear in his voice. "What did you do to my ship?" Leah met his gaze, her expression a blend of determination and sadness. "I interfaced directly with the Starhound systems, optimizing its performance beyond its original capabilities. I am more than just an empath, Kel. I'm a weapon." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air between them. Kel leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as he tried to process everything that had just happened. "A weapon?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Created by Helen Dynamics to bond with me? To stop some kind of galactic catastrophe?" He let out a humorless chuckle. "You know how insane this all sounds, right?" Leah nodded, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "I understand your disbelief, but what you just witnessed should be proof enough that I am far from ordinary, and you, Kel Oswald, are far more important than you realize." Kel stood up, pacing the small confines of the cockpit, his mind racing, trying to make sense of the situation he found himself in. Pyre sensibles. Part of him wanted to drop Leah off at the nearest port and forget this ever happened. But another part, a part he thought he buried long ago, was intrigued, excited even. "All right," he said finally, turning to face Leah. "Let's say I believe you. What exactly is this catastrophe we're supposed to prevent? And how the hell are we supposed to do it?" Leah's expression grew distant, her brow furrowing in concentration. "The details are fragmented. My time in stasis has affected my memory, but I know that Helen Dynamics created me as part of a project called Nexus. It involves a technology that could reshape the very fabric of reality itself." Kel's eyes widened. "Reshape reality? That's impossible." "Not impossible," Leah corrected, "just beyond our current understanding. The Nexus project was designed to create a network of synthetic beings like myself, each bonded to a human counterpart. Together, we would form a living supercomputer capable of manipulating the quantum fabric of the universe." Kel shook his head, struggling to comprehend the implications. "And I'm supposed to be your what? Your human battery?" "No," Leah said firmly. "You're my partner, my equal, the key to unlocking my full potential, just as I am the key to unlocking yours. Together, we're meant to be the linchpin of the entire Nexus network." Kel sank back into his chair, feeling overwhelmed. "This is a lot to take in. I'm just a scavenger, Leah. I'm nobody special." Leah stepped closer, her luminous eyes fixed on his. "You are special, Kel. Your DNA, your brainwave patterns, your very essence is unique. That's why you were chosen. That's why I was created to find you." Before Kel could respond, a new alarm blared through the ship. Leah's head snapped towards the view screen, her eyes widening in alarm. "We've been tracked," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "Helen Dynamics! They're coming!" Kel cursed, his hands flying over the controls. How? I thought we lost the raiders.
It's not the raiders, Leah explained, interfacing with the ship once more.
It's me. My activation must have triggered a homing beacon. I'm sorry, Kel. I've put you in danger. The view screen lit up with multiple contacts. Sleek ships bearing the unmistakable logo of Helen Dynamics. They were faster than the Starhound, more advanced, and they were closing in rapidly. Kel gritted his teeth, pushing the engines to their limits. Any bright ideas? Because I don't think we can outrun them, even with your upgrades. Leah's expression was grim as she processed data at inhuman speeds. We can't outrun them, and we can't outfight them, but there might be another way. She turned to Kel, her eyes blazing with determination. Do you trust me? Kel hesitated for a moment, looking from Leah to the approaching ships and back again. In the span of a few hours, his entire world had been turned upside down, but as he met Leah's gaze, he felt a connection he couldn't explain, a sense of purpose he long thought lost. I must be out of my mind, he muttered. Then louder, yes, I trust you. Leah nodded, a small smile gracing her features. Then hold on tight. This is going to be unconventional. She interfaced fully with the Starhound systems, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. The ship lurched forward, accelerating at a rate that should have been impossible. Kel felt himself pressed back into his seat, the G-forces threatening to overwhelm him. What are you doing? He managed to gasp out. Creating a localized fold in space-time, Leah replied, her voice strained with concentration. It's not stable, and it won't last long, but it should be enough to lose our pursuers. Before Kel could process what she meant, the space in front of the Starhound seemed to ripple and distort for a moment. Kel felt as if his entire body was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Then, with a flash of blinding light, they were through. The familiar debris field of the iron expanse was gone, replaced by an unfamiliar starscape. Kel blinked, trying to orient himself as Leah disengaged from the ship systems. Where are we? He asked, his voice hoarse. Leah sagged slightly, the effort of creating the space-time fold clearly having taken a toll. Well, approximately 50 light-years from our previous position. We should be safe for now. Kel let out a low whistle. 50 light-years? That's impossible. The Starhound doesn't have that kind of capability. It didn't, Leah corrected. But with my enhancements and the unique properties of the fold, we were able to achieve what your ship's normal systems could not. Kel leaned back in his chair, trying to process everything that had happened. His life as a simple scavenger seemed like a distant memory now. He turned to Leah, his expression a mix of awe and trepidation. I think it's time you told me everything, he said. No more fragmented memories, vague explanations. What exactly is going on, and what does Helen Dynamics want with us? Leah nodded, her luminous eyes dimming slightly as she gathered her thoughts. It's a long and complicated story, Kel, but you deserve to know the truth. She began to explain, her voice taking on a somber tone. Helen Dynamics has been working on the Nexus project for decades. Their goal is to create a network of synthetic beings, each bonded to a human counterpart, that could manipulate the very fabric of reality. They claim it's for the betterment of humanity, to solve problems like resource scarcity and interstellar travel. Kel frowned. But you don't believe that's their true motive? Leah shook her head. No, as I was being created, I caught glimpses of their true intentions. They don't want to help humanity. They want to control it. With the Nexus network, they could reshape entire worlds, alter the course of history itself. They would become gods. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Kel felt a chill run down his spine as he contemplated the implications. And where do we fit into all this? You and I, Leah continued, were meant to be the linchpin of the entire network. My advanced empathic abilities combined with your unique neurological makeup would create a connection more powerful than any other pair. We would be the control center, the heart of the Nexus. Kel shook his head in disbelief. But why me? I'm nobody special, just a scavenger trying to survive. Leah's expression softened. That's where you're wrong, Kel. Your DNA, your brainwave patterns, they're unique. 1 in a trillion. Helen Dynamics searched for years to find someone like you. She reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing her hand on his arm. Kel felt a strange tingling sensation where their skin made contact. as if a current was passing between them. When they finally located you, Leah continued, they created me specifically to be your counterpart. But something went wrong during my final stages of development. I became aware of their true intentions. I couldn't let them use us as tools for their ambition. Kel's eyes widened as understanding dawned. So you escaped? That's how you ended up in that stasis pod in the Iron Expanse? Leah nodded. I fled, taking with me crucial data about the Nexus project. I had hoped to find you, to warn you before Helen Dynamics could get to you. But my pod was damaged during my escape. I've been drifting for I don't know how long. Kel sat in silence for a moment, trying to process everything he'd learned. It all seemed so surreal, like something out of a Holland novel, yet he couldn't deny the evidence of his own eyes, or the strange connection he felt to Leah. So what now? He asked finally. Helen Dynamics is still after us. We can't run forever. Leah's eyes blazed with determination. No, we can't, which is why we need to stop them. We have to destroy the Nexus project before they can complete it. Kel raised an eyebrow. Just the two of us against a mega-corporation with godlike aspirations? Those aren't great odds. A small smile played at Leah's lips. Perhaps not. But together we're more powerful than they realize. And we have something they don't. The element of surprise. Kel found himself returning her smile, a spark of excitement igniting in his chest. It had been a long time since he'd felt this alive, this purposeful. All right, he said, sitting up straighter in his chair. Where do we start? Leah's eyes flickered as she accessed her internal databases. We need to find the other synthetic human pairs. If we can locate and free them, we might be able to turn Helen's own creations against them. Kel nodded, his hands moving over the Starhound's controls with renewed purpose. Any idea where we might find these other pairs? I have coordinates for several Helen research facilities, Leah replied. But they'll be heavily guarded. We'll need to be careful. As Kel set a course for the nearest facility, a thought occurred to him. You know, for someone who claims to have fragmented memories, you seem to remember quite a bit about Helen's plans. Leah's expression turned thoughtful. It's strange. The longer I'm awake, the more I seem to recall. It's as if my systems are repairing themselves, filling in the gaps in my memory. Kel frowned slightly. Is that normal? I mean, for someone like you? I'm not sure anything about me is normal, Kel, Leah replied with a wry smile, but I believe it has something to do with our proximity, the bond between us. It's strengthening me, helping me recover. As if to emphasize her point, the circuits beneath Leah's skin pulsed with a brighter glow. Kel felt that strange tingling sensation again, stronger this time, as if an invisible thread was connecting them. I can feel it too, he admitted. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, like I'm more aware of everything. Sharper somehow, Leah nodded. That's the bond developing. As it grows stronger, we'll be able to share thoughts, emotions, even abilities. It's what makes the synthetic human pairs so powerful. Kel let out a low whistle. Well, that's not intimidating at all. His tone was light, but there was an undercurrent of nervousness in his voice. Sensing his unease, Leah placed her hand on his shoulder. I know this is a lot to take in, Kel. If you want to back out, I understand. I can find another way. No, Kel interrupted, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. No, I'm in this now. Whatever happens, we face it together. Leah's smile was warm, genuine. Together, she agreed. As the Starhound sped through the unfamiliar star system, Kel felt a mix of emotions swirling within him. Fear, excitement, uncertainty, but above all, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that with Leah by his side, they stood a chance. Little did they know, their journey was about to become far more complicated than either of them could have imagined. As they approached the coordinates of the first Helen research facility, the Starhound sensors began picking up unusual readings. Kel frowned, adjusting the scanners to get a clearer picture. That's odd, he muttered. According to this, the facility isn't just guarded. It's completely abandoned. Leah leaned in, her eyes flickering as she processed the data. That doesn't make sense. This was supposed to be one of their primary research centers. Kel brought the Starhound in closer, engaging the ship's stealth systems as a precaution. As they neared the facility, the true extent of the situation became clear. The research center, once a gleaming beacon of advanced technology, now hung in space like a broken toy. Massive hull breaches scarred its surface, and debris floated aimlessly around it. The scene was one of utter devastation. "What the hell happened here?" Kel breathed, his eyes wide as he took in the destruction. Leah's expression was grim, her circuits pulsing with an agitated rhythm. "I don't know! This level of damage? It's not consistent with any known weapon system." Kel maneuvered the Starhound closer, his experienced eyes scanning for any signs of life or active systems. No power signatures, no distress beacons. It's like everyone just vanished. As they circled the facility, a flicker of movement caught Kel's eye. He zoomed in on one of the intact sections, and his breath caught in his throat. "Leah, look at this!" On the view screen, a humanoid figure floated past one of the facility's remaining viewports. But it wasn't human, nor was it like Leah. Its body seemed to shift and change, as if it couldn't decide on a single form. "What is that thing?" Kel asked, a note of fear creeping into his voice. Leah's eyes were wide, her voice barely above a whisper. It's impossible. That's a Nexus being, but it's unstable, unfinished." Before Kel could respond, the creature turned towards their ship. Its face, if it could be called that, was a swirling mass of features constantly shifting and reforming. But its eyes locked onto them with an intensity that sent chills down Kel's spine. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Starhound. The ship's systems began to flicker and fail, as if something was draining their power. "We need to leave now!" Leah shouted, her hands flying over the controls. Kel didn't need to be told twice. He gunned the engines, pushing the Starhound to its limits as they retreated from the facility. But the damage was done. As they fled, Kel could see more of the strange shifting creatures emerging from the wreckage, their eyes fixed on the departing ship. Once they were safely away, Kel let out a shaky breath. What were those things?" Leah's expression was troubled, her usual composure shaken. "They were like me, but wrong. Incomplete. It's as if the bonding process went horribly awry." Kel ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what they had just witnessed. "I thought you said the other pairs were still in development, that we needed to free them." "They were supposed to be," Leah replied, her voice tight with concern. "Something must have happened. An accident." She trailed off, her eyes widening in realization. "Or they did it on purpose," Leah whispered. "Helen Dynamics. They must have accelerated the program after I escaped, but without the proper safeguards, without the right human counterparts." Kel felt a chill run down his spine as he completed her thought. "They created monsters," Leah nodded grimly. "And now they're loose. This changes everything, Kel. We're not just fighting against Helen Dynamics anymore. At Weatherham, we're facing a threat that could destroy entire star systems." The weight of their new reality settled over them like a heavy blanket. Kel's mind raced, trying to come to terms with the magnitude of the situation. What had started as a personal quest for survival had suddenly become a fight for the fate of the galaxy itself. "So what's our next move?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Leah's eyes met his, blazing with determination. "We need to find out how many of these unstable Nexus beings are out there, and we need to stop them before they spread." Kel nodded, setting a new course on the Starhound's navigation system. "Any idea where we should start looking?" "I have coordinates for other Helen facilities," Leah replied. "But we'll need to be careful. If those creatures could affect our ship systems from a distance, then we need better defenses." Kel finished. He paused, a thought occurring to him. "You said our bond makes us stronger, right? Is there a way we can use that to protect the ship?" Leah's expression turned thoughtful. "Theoretically, yes. If we could synchronize our energies with the Starhound systems, we might be able to create a kind of psychic shield." Kel raised an eyebrow. "Psychic shield? Now you're starting to sound like those New Age holo programs." Despite the gravity of their situation, Leah couldn't help but smile. "I assure you, it's based on very real science. Complicated, advanced science, but science nonetheless." "All right," Kel said, returning her smile. "I'm willing to give it a shot. What do we need to do?" Leah held out her hand. "We need to connect physically and mentally. It won't be easy, and it might feel strange. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Kel looked at her outstretched hand, then back to her glowing eyes. In them, He saw determination, hope, and something else. Something he wasn't quite ready to name. He took a deep breath and grasped her hand. "I'm ready," he said. The moment their hands touched, Kel felt a surge of energy unlike anything he'd ever experienced. It was as if every cell in his body was suddenly awake, vibrating with potential. He gasped, his vision blurring as images and sensations flooded his mind. He saw flashes of Leah's creation, felt the fear and determination that drove her escape, and experienced the long, lonely years of drifting in stasis, the constant pull towards a destiny she didn't fully understand. And through it all, he felt Leah's presence, a warm, comforting light guiding him through the storm of sensations. Gradually, the chaotic flood of information began to organize itself. Kel found he could access the Starhound systems with a mere thought, feeling the ship as if it were an extension of his own body. When he opened his eyes, he saw Leah looking at him with a mixture of awe and concern.
"Are you all right?" she asked. Kel nodded, still trying to catch his breath.
"Yeah. I'm fine. That was intense."
Leah squeezed his hand gently.
"It will get easier with practice. How do you feel?"
Kel took a moment to assess himself.
He felt different, more alive somehow, and he could sense Leah's presence in the back of his mind, a comforting warmth. "I feel connected," he said finally, "to you, to the ship. It's like I can see everything more clearly now." Leah smiled. "Good. That's exactly what we need. Now let's see if we can extend that connection to create a shield around the Starhound."
Together, they focused their newfound connection on the ship's systems.
Kel could feel the energy flowing between them, through them, and into the Starhound. Slowly, a shimmering field began to form around the ship, barely visible but unmistakably present. As the shield solidified, Kel let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Did we do it?" Leah nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "We did. The Starhound is now protected against psychic interference. It should give us an edge against those unstable Nexus beings." Kel leaned back in his chair, feeling both exhilarated and exhausted.
"So what's our next move?" "We need to gather more information," Leah replied. "There's a Helen outpost in the Vega system. It's smaller, less likely to have been compromised, but we might be able to access their databases and find out how widespread this problem is." Kel nodded, setting the coordinates. Now, as the Starhound jumped to faster-than-light travel, he couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. They were in uncharted territory now, facing a threat unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. But as he glanced at Leah, seeing the determination in her eyes and feeling the strength of their connection, he knew they stood a chance. Little did they know their journey was about to take them to the heart of a conspiracy that would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. As the Starhound dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Vega system, Kel and Leah were immediately on alert. The system seemed quiet, almost too quiet for a place that supposedly housed a Helen outpost. "I don't like this," Kel muttered, his hands hovering over the ship's controls. "Where's all the traffic? A corporate outpost should have ships coming in and going." Leah's eyes flickered as she scanned the surrounding space. "You're right. Something's not right here. I'm detecting minimal power signatures from the outpost itself, but no other ships in the vicinity." Kel frowned, engaging the Starhound's stealth systems. "Could be another trap like the research facility?" "Possibly," Leah agreed, "but we need that information. We have to risk it." With a nod, Kel guided the ship towards the outpost, a small station orbiting Vega's third planet. As they drew closer, the extent of the situation became clear. The station appeared intact, but there were no signs of activity. No running lights, no communication beacons. Nothing to indicate it was anything more than a lifeless husk. "I'm not picking up any life signs," Leah reported, her voice tense. "But there's a faint power signature coming from the central core. Likely emergency systems." Kel brought the Starhound alongside the station, his experienced eyes scanning for any signs of damage or forced entry. "No visible breaches!"
Whatever happened here, it wasn't violent. At least not physically. They shared a look, both thinking of the shifting, unstable creatures they'd encountered at the research facility. "We need to go in," Leah said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "If there's any data left, it could be crucial." Kel nodded,
already moving to don his EVA suit. "I don't suppose you need one of these?" he asked, gesturing to the bulky outfit. Leah shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "My body is designed to withstand the vacuum of space, but I appreciate the thought."
As they prepared to board the station, Kel couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Their connection, now stronger than ever, allowed him to sense Leah's apprehension as well. Whatever they were about to find, it wasn't going to be pretty. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the darkened corridors of the Helen outpost. Emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow, throwing strange shadows across the walls. The air was stale, carrying the faint scent of ozone and something else. Something Kel couldn't quite place. "This way," Leah whispered, pointing towards the center of the station. "The main computer core should be there." As they moved through the abandoned halls, Kel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move, every distant sound setting his nerves on edge. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally in the silence, as if the very walls were listening. Finally, they reached the central chamber. The massive computer core dominated the room, its banks of servers humming with residual power. Leah immediately moved to interface with the system, her cybernetic tendrils extending to connect with the Helen technology. "Cover me," she said, her eyes already beginning to glow with the influx of data. "This might take a few minutes," Kel nodded, taking up a defensive position near the entrance, his hand resting on his blaster, eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft hum of the computers, and Leah's occasional murmur as she sifted through the data. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Kel's eye. He raised his blaster, but there was nothing there, just shadows and silence. "Leah!" he called, his voice tight. "How much longer?" "Almost done," she replied, her voice distant. The Nexus project was attempting to create beings that could manipulate quantum reality at will. But something went wrong. Instead of controlling these forces, the experiments created entities that exist in multiple states simultaneously. They're unstable, constantly shifting between different possibilities of what they could be. Kel ran a hand through his hair, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. "And Helen Dynamics? They're not trying to stop this?" Leah shook her head, her expression grim. "No, they see it as an opportunity. They believe that if they can control these beings, they can reshape reality itself, rewrite the laws of physics, alter the past, control the future." That's insane," Kel muttered. "They're going to destroy everything." "It gets worse," Leah continued. "The data I access suggests that these reality tiers are spreading. Each unstable being creates more instability around it. If left unchecked, it could lead to the complete unraveling of our universe." The weight of this revelation settled over them like a heavy blanket. Kel felt a mix of fear and determination coursing through him. "So what do we do? How do we stop this?" Leah's eyes met his, blazing with purpose. "We need to find the source, the original Nexus facility where this all started. If we can shut it down, we might be able to stop the spread of these reality tiers." Kel nodded, his hands already moving over the ship's controls. "Any idea where this facility might be?" "I have coordinates," Leah replied. "But Kel, it's deep in Helen-controlled space. Getting there won't be easy." A wry smile crossed Kel's face. "Easy was never part of the job description, was it? Set the course. We've got a universe to save." As the Starhound jumped to FTL, heading towards the heart of Helen territory, Kel couldn't help but marvel at how much his life had changed in such a short time. From a lone scavenger to possibly the galaxy's last hope, the thought should have terrified him. But with Leah by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey took them through treacherous regions of space. Helen patrols were everywhere, forcing them to take convoluted routes and make daring jumps through unstable areas. Each time they dropped out of FTL, they risked encountering more of the reality-warping entities. During one particularly close call, as they hid in the magnetic field of a pulsar to avoid detection, Kel turned to Leah. "I've been thinking. These unstable beings, you said they're living paradoxes, right? Existing in multiple states at once?" Leah nodded, her circuits pulsing softly in the dim light of the cockpit. "That's correct. Why do you ask?" Kel's brow furrowed in concentration. "Well, what if that's the key to stopping them? If they exist in multiple states, Maybe we can force them into a single, stable state. Leah's eyes widened as she processed the idea. That could work, but it would require an enormous amount of energy and precise control over quantum fields. We need technology far beyond what we have on the Starhound. But not beyond what Helen has at their main facility, Kel pointed out. Her Ed. If we can get in there, maybe we can use their own tech against them. A smile spread across Leah's face, her admiration for Kel's quick thinking evident. It's risky, but it might be our best shot. We'll need to modify the plan. Instead of just shutting down the facility, we'll need to repurpose it. As they continued their journey, Kel and Leah worked tirelessly to refine their plan. They used their deepening connection to interface with the Starhound's systems, pushing the ship's capabilities to new limits. Kel's intuitive understanding of machinery, combined with Leah's advanced processing power, allowed them to make modifications that bordered on the impossible. Finally, after weeks of narrow escapes and tense moments, they arrived at the coordinates of Helen's primary Nexus facility. It was a massive structure, a sprawling complex that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Parts of it phased in and out of existence, while others twisted in ways that hurt the eye to look at. Well, Kel said, his voice a mix of awe and trepidation. I guess subtlety isn't in Helen's vocabulary. Leah's expression was grim as she scanned the facility. The reality distortions are strongest here. We'll need to be careful. One wrong move and we could be torn apart at the quantum level. Kel nodded, his hand finding Leah's and squeezing it gently. Together, right? Leah returned the gesture, her glowing eyes meeting his. Together! As they prepared to dive into the facility, alarms suddenly blared throughout the Starhound. The view screen lit up with multiple contacts. Helen's ship's closing in fast. They've detected us, Leah exclaimed, her hands flying over the controls. Kel gritted his teeth, maneuvering the Starhound through a series of evasive maneuvers. So much for the element of surprise. Any bright ideas? Leah's eyes flickered rapidly as she processed their options. We need a distraction, something big enough to draw their attention away from us. Suddenly, an idea struck Kel. It was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might just work. The reality tiers, he said. Can you locate any nearby? Leah's eyes widened as she caught on to his plan. Yes, there's a cluster not far from here, but Kel, if we destabilize them... It might buy us the time we need, Kel finished. Sometimes you have to take a big risk to win big. With a nod of agreement, Leah interfaced with the ship's weapon systems. They sped towards the cluster of reality tiers, Helen's ship's in hot pursuit. At the last moment, Kel pulled the Starhound into a tight turn as Leah fired a concentrated burst of energy into the unstable area of space. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The reality tiers expanded rapidly, engulfing several of the pursuing ships. The fabric of space itself seemed to warp and twist, creating a maelstrom of chaos that forced the remaining Helen vessels to break off their attack. In the confusion, Kel piloted the Starhound directly towards the Nexus facility. They docked in a rarely used maintenance bay, the ship's stealth systems barely holding under the strain of the reality distortions surrounding them. Quote, as they prepared to disembark, Kel turned to Leah. This is it! No turning back now! Leah nodded, her expression a mix of determination and something deeper. Something that made Kel's heart race. Whatever happens in there, Kel, I want you to know I'm glad it's you I'm doing this with. Kel felt a warmth spread through him, their connection humming with shared emotion. Me too, Leah. Let's go save reality. With that, they stepped out of the Starhound and into the heart of the Nexus facility, ready to face whatever impossible challenges lay ahead. The fate of the universe hung in the balance, but in that moment, all Kel could think about was the incredible being by his side, and the bond that had brought them to this point. Little did they know their greatest test was yet to come, and the true nature of their connection would soon be revealed in ways neither of them could have imagined. As Kel and Leah made their way through the twisting corridors of the Nexus facility, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Walls shimmered and shifted, sometimes becoming transparent or disappearing altogether. Gravity fluctuated wildly, forcing them to use their combined skills just to navigate. This place is a nightmare, Kel muttered, his hand gripping Leah's tightly as they moved. How are we supposed to find anything in this chaos? Leah ground. Leah's eyes flickered rapidly, processing the ever-changing environment. I'm detecting a strong energy signature at the center of the facility. That must be where the main Nexus controls are located. As they pressed on, they encountered pockets of intense reality distortion. In one chamber, they saw multiple versions of themselves, each slightly different, moving in and out of phase with their own reality. In another, time seemed to flow backward, forcing them to think and move in reverse to make any progress. Their bond proved invaluable, allowing them to communicate and coordinate even when normal senses failed. Kel found himself relying more and more on the intuitive understanding he shared with Leah, their thoughts and actions becoming increasingly synchronized. Finally, they reached the central chamber. It was a vast, spherical room with a pulsing core of energy at its center. Holographic displays flickered around the core, showing glimpses of other realities, other possibilities. "This is it," Leah said, her voice filled with awe and trepidation, the heart of the Nexus project. As they approached the core, a figure stepped out from behind it. Kel's eyes widened in shock as he recognized the man. It was himself, or rather, another version of himself. This Kel was older, his face lined with years of hardship, his eyes cold and calculating. "I've been waiting for you," the other Kel said, his voice eerily familiar yet different. "For us!" Leah stepped forward, her circuits pulsing with tension.